Denver Broncos family, hold on to your seats because I have news that could completely change the direction of our Week 3. You know that when we talk about the Broncos defense, every piece matters. Every player makes the difference between victory and defeat. And today I have hot information straight from the Inglewood training facility that will make you understand why this Thursday was extra special for Broncos Country. We're talking about changes to our defensive roster that could define how we're going to face the Chargers in Week 3. We have players returning. We have concerning situations, and we have decisions that Sean Payton is going to have to make that could change everything in our defensive strategy. So stick with me because we're going to break down every detail of this situation, analyze what this means for our defense, and understand how these changes in the injury report can directly impact our performance against Los Angeles. Folks, let's start with the news that could be the game changer for our defense. Justin Strnad is back. That's right, family. Our inside linebacker, who was dealing with a foot injury, finally returned to practice on Thursday as a limited participant. For those who haven't been following, Strnad didn't participate in Wednesday's practice, which generated enormous concern in Broncos Country. After all, we're talking about a fundamental player in our second defensive line, a guy who knows the system, who has experience, and who can make the crucial difference in middle field coverage against the Chargers. But here comes the question that won't go away. Does this return as a limited participant mean he's really ready to face Keenan Allen and all that dangerous Los Angeles offense? Because it's one thing to return to practice, it's another thing to be 100% physically ready to handle the punishment of a divisional game. And look, Denver Broncos family, when we talk about inside linebackers in our defensive system, we're not messing around. These guys are the brains of our defense in the middle of the field. They're the ones who communicate between the defensive line and the secondary. They're the ones who cover tight ends on crossing routes. They're the ones who stop those runs through the A and B gaps that can define a game. Speak up, Broncos Country. Do you believe Strnad will be available for Sunday? Comment below with your opinions. Now, while we celebrate Strnad's possible return, we have other situations that are leaving the coaching staff worried. Dre Greenlaw continues to be out of practice for the second consecutive day because of a quadriceps injury. Folks, this is serious business. Greenlaw came here with all that 49ers background, with that playoff experience, with that winning mentality that we so desperately need in our linebacker corps. Seeing him out of practice for 2 straight days isn't something we can ignore, especially when we're talking about a divisional matchup where every down, every tackle, every coverage can define the result. And there's more. Evan Engram is also out for the second consecutive day, this time due to back problems. Look, I know the focus here is defense, but when a veteran tight end like Engram can't practice, this directly impacts our offensive preparation and could end up affecting time of possession, which consequently will overload our defense. Now let's talk about the good news, because it's not all obstacles in the path of the Denver Broncos family. Talanoa Hufanga, our safety, managed to progress from limited participant on Wednesday to full participant on Thursday. That's what we want to see. Hufanga was dealing with a chest injury, and seeing him able to participate completely in practice shows that our medical staff is doing exceptional work in recovering our players. And look how crucial the safety's role is in our defensive scheme, especially against an offense like the Chargers that likes to work with deep formations. Nick Bonito continues as a full participant, even while dealing with this wrist situation. Folks, this shows how much of a warrior this guy is. Outside linebacker is a position that requires a lot of physical contact, a lot of quarterback pressure. And seeing Bonito able to practice completely, even with this limitation, says a lot about the character and dedication of this player to Broncos Country. Alex Singleton also maintains full participant status despite the thumb injury. Singleton is a veteran who knows like no one else the importance of being available for the team, especially in divisional games like the one we have ahead. And there's Nate Adkins, who continues training completely, even with the ankle injury. Look, this shows the depth and quality of our roster, family. Having players who can overcome small physical limitations to be available when the team needs them is fundamental in a long season like the NFL. But now comes the part that makes me most anxious. Sean Payton and the entire coaching staff will only release the official status of all these players on Friday. This means we have one more day of suspense, one more day without knowing exactly who we can count on against the Chargers. Denver Broncos family, can you imagine the pressure this puts on our coaching staff? Having to put together a game plan without knowing if fundamental pieces like Strnad and Greenlaw will be available? This requires a level of preparation and adaptability that few teams can demonstrate. Let's analyze scenario by scenario here. If Strnad is available, our defense gains much more flexibility in the middle of the field. We can work with more aggressive packages, we can put more pressure on Herbert without leaving the middle completely uncovered. But if he's not 100%, we'll have to adjust our entire defensive strategy. Hey, if you're enjoying this complete analysis of the Broncos injury report, subscribe to the channel now. Hit the notification bell because here on the channel, you always stay up to date with everything that happens with the Denver Broncos family. Don't miss any updates, any analysis, any play from our beloved team. And look at this interesting situation we're experiencing. We have players returning, we have players staying out, we have others evolving positively. This is exactly what happens during an NFL season. It's a real roller coaster of expectations and adaptations. What catches my attention most about this injury report is how our defense can have completely different configurations depending on who's available on Sunday. With Strnad and Greenlaw healthy, we have a more experienced and versatile linebacker core. Without them, we need to rely more on the young guys and adjust our schemes. But here's an important reflection for you, Broncos Country. Regardless of who's on the field on Sunday, our defensive mentality can't change. We are Denver Broncos. We are the home of the Orange Crush. We are the team that built its tradition based on dominant defenses. Do you remember how our defense managed to adapt in the first weeks? Even with limitations, even with adjustments, our guys managed to execute the game plan and keep our offense in the game. This shows the quality of the coaching and the dedication of our players. And speaking of the Chargers family, we can't forget that they have an offense that will test every inch of our defense. Justin Herbert is a quarterback who can find small windows. Keenan Allen is a receiver who knows like no one else all the possible routes. And they have a running game that can exploit any weakness in our second line. That's why Strnad's return could be so important. He knows the Chargers' tendencies, he knows how they like to attack the middle of the field, and having that experience available could make all the difference in decisive moments of the game. But let's be realistic here. Even if Strnad returns as a limited participant, that doesn't mean he'll have the same level of mobility and aggressiveness we're used to seeing. A foot injury for a linebacker is always delicate because it directly affects the ability to change direction and explosion in coverage. And here comes a fundamental point that many fans don't consider. The injury report isn't just about who will play or not. It's about how each physical limitation can affect the individual and collective performance of our defense. A Strnad, at 80% of his physical capacity, can still contribute with his experience and game reading, but maybe he can't keep up with those fast, tight ends on crossing routes. A Greenlaw still feeling the quadriceps might have difficulty in those lateral coverages that require maximum explosion. These are details that make all the difference when we're talking about the NFL Denver Broncos family. Every tenth of a second in reaction, every inch in coverage, every pound of force in the tackle can define between a defensive stop and a touchdown by the opponents. Speak up, Broncos Country. Which player do you think will be most important for our defense on Sunday? Strnad returning, Hufanga in full condition, or do you bet on our depth chart to overcome any adversity? Now, let's dive into what really matters. How these changes in the injury report can affect our defensive strategy against the Chargers. And believe me, family, the impacts go far beyond simply having or not having certain players on the field. First, let's talk about the versatility of our defensive scheme. With Strnad available, even if limited, our defensive coordinator gets more options to work with different packages. We can use more 3-4 formations. We can be more aggressive in third down situations. We can work better the tight end coverages. But if Greenlaw continues to be out, we lose a crucial element in our ability to defend against the Chargers' running game. Greenlaw has that experience in quickly recognizing the gaps that will be attacked, has that anticipation that only veteran players possess. And look how interesting. Having Hufanga completely recovered can give us more flexibility to use more aggressive coverages in the secondary. With him healthy, we can work better those safety rotations that confuse the opposing quarterback and create opportunities for turnovers. Denver Broncos family, do you see how each piece of our defense connects with the others? It's like a puzzle, where each player has to be in the right place at the right time, perfectly executing their responsibility. And there's another aspect we can't ignore, the psychological impact. Having important players returning from injury brings positive energy to the entire group. The guys feel they're getting more complete, more prepared to face any challenge. But on the other hand, uncertainty about who will really be available can create unnecessary tension in preparation. Coaches have to prepare multiple scenarios. Players have to be ready to assume different responsibilities depending on who's on the field. Let's get to what really matters for those who understand football, the technical analysis of how these changes can impact our defensive performance. Justin Strnad, operating as a limited participant, means he'll probably have restrictions in drills that require maximum direction change and explosive lateral movements. For an inside linebacker, this could mean limitations in slot receiver and tight end coverages on drag routes. But here's the positive point. Strnad has a very high defensive IQ. Even with physical limitations, he can compensate with early positioning and quick reading of offensive intentions. This could be crucial against an offense like the Chargers that likes to work with timing routes. Greenlaw's continued absence forces our coaching staff to completely adjust linebacker packages. We'll have to rely more on players like Singleton and other guys from our depth chart to assume responsibilities that would normally be Greenlaw's. And this creates an interesting domino effect. With Singleton assuming more responsibilities on the first line, other players have to be ready to enter specific packages. This is where the depth of our roster will really be tested. Hufanga returning as a full participant is exceptional news for our secondary. Safety is a position that requires 100% physical conditioning because these guys need to cover a lot of field, from the line of scrimmage to deep coverages. With him healthy, we can work better those pre-snap rotations that confuse the quarterback. We can use more single high safety coverages. We can be more aggressive in red zone situations. We can give more support against the running game without compromising our passing coverage. Benito continuing as a full participant, even with the wrist injury, shows this player's level of determination. Outside linebacker needs maximum strength in hands and wrists to execute pass rush techniques and shed blocks. Seeing him overcome this limitation is inspiring. Denver Broncos family, let's work with the most probable scenarios to understand how our defense might be configured on Sunday. Scenario 1. Strnad available. Greenlaw still out in this situation. We'd have Strnad and Singleton as our main inside linebackers, with Strnad probably in specific packages where his experience is more valued than his maximum mobility. It would be a configuration that would privilege communication and game reading. Scenario 2. Strnad out. Greenlaw returns. Here we'd have Greenlaw assuming a leadership role in the linebacker core, but with possible snap limitations due to time away from practice. It would be a scenario that would require more player rotation to keep everyone fresh. Scenario 3. Both available. This would be the ideal scenario, even if both had some limitations. We'd have more strategic options, more flexibility in different packages, more experience on the field to deal with adverse situations. Scenario 4. Both out the worst possible scenario, which would force our coaching staff to rely completely on the depth chart and significantly adjust our defensive schemes. But look, family, if this happens, I have complete confidence in our guys' preparation, and regardless of which scenario materializes, our defensive mentality has to be the same. Pressure. Herbert, stop the running game. Force turnovers and give opportunities for our offense to work with favorable field position. Now let's get to what really matters. how these injury report situations can affect our specific game plan against Los Angeles. The Chargers have an offense that likes to attack the middle of the field with their tight ends and slot receivers. If we don't have our best linebacker configuration, they can exploit this area with crossing routes and drag patterns that can generate big plays. Justin Herbert is a quarterback who can find those small windows in the middle of the field, especially when our coverage isn't perfectly synchronized. That's why Strnad's return, even limited, could be crucial to keep these routes under control. But here's an advantage we have regardless of who's on the field. Our front seven has been able to generate consistent pressure on the quarterback. With Benito healthy and other pass rushers in good shape, we can compensate for eventual coverage limitations with more pressure in the pocket. And look how interesting, the Chargers also have their own limitations on the injury report. This means the game could turn into a real battle of adaptations and adjustments during all 4 quarters. Denver Broncos family, do you see how complex football is? It's not just putting 11 players on the field, it's about having the right system with the right players, perfectly executing their responsibilities on every down. One thing that makes me proud of Broncos Country is seeing how our organization invests in developing young players. When we have situations like this on the injury report, that's when we really discover the quality of our depth chart. Players who would normally have smaller roles might have the opportunity to show their value, to prove they deserve more opportunities, to contribute to the team's success in ways we might not have even imagined. And this is fundamental in an NFL season, having players prepared to assume greater responsibilities when necessary. It's not just about having stars on the field, it's about having a complete team where each player knows their role and is ready to execute when called upon. Seeing guys like Singleton staying healthy and available shows the importance of having experienced veterans who can lead by example and help the younger ones adapt quickly to the demands of professional football. Family now comes the part that will define everything, Friday's injury report. That's when we'll officially know who's available, who's questionable, and who definitely won't be able to contribute against the Chargers. This wait until Friday is part of NFL strategy, but for us fans it's almost torture. We want to know right away if we can count on our favorite players, if our defense will be at maximum strength, if we have everything we need to win this divisional game. But regardless of the news we'll receive, one thing is certain. Whoever is available will give everything for Broncos Country. This is the mentality that has always defined our organization, from the Orange Crush days until today. And look, even with all these uncertainties on the injury report, we can't forget that we have one of the most experienced coaching staffs in the league. Sean Payton and his assistants know how to adapt strategies, how to maximize the potential of available players, how to put our team in the best possible position to win. Speak up, Broncos Country. Are you confident for Sunday regardless of who's on the field? Or do you think we need specific players to have a chance against the Chargers? Denver Broncos family, we've reached the end of another complete analysis here on the channel. I hope you've understood all the nuances of this injury report situation and how it can impact our game against the Chargers. The most important thing I want to leave with you is, regardless of who's on the field on Sunday, our responsibility as fans is to support unconditionally. Every player who wears our orange and blue jersey deserves our respect and our positive energy. So keep following the updates, keep cheering, keep being part of this incredible family that is Broncos Country. And don't forget, on Friday we'll have the final injury report, so stay tuned here on the channel for all updates. So, Denver Broncos family, what do you think will happen with our injured players? Will Strnad be 100% for Sunday? Will Greenlaw be able to return in time? Which player do you think will be most important for our victory? Comment below with all your opinions, leave a like. If you enjoyed the analysis, share with other Broncos fans, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content about our beloved team. Until the next video, and always remember, we are Broncos Country, we are family, and together we are stronger. Let's go all out for this week 3 and for another orange and blue victory. And go Broncos!